Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever looked back on a decision you made, one you were so sure about, and realized with a sinking feeling that you were completely wrong? Not just a little off, but catastrophically mistaken. And yet, in the moment, you were certain. You trusted your reasoning, your intelligence, your instincts. That's the terrifying paradox. We can be smart, educated, even brilliant, and still act like fools. This isn't just a personal flaw, it's a pattern, a trap. One that history, psychology, and philosophy all warn us about. Because intelligence does not protect us from stupidity, it often creates it. Most people think stupidity is the absence of intelligence. But the philosopher Dietrich Bonhoeffer had a darker view. He argued that stupidity is not a lack of intellect, it's a moral failing. It's when a person gives up the responsibility to think, when they let others do their thinking for them. That's why stupid people can be highly educated. That's why some of the worst atrocities in history weren't committed by ignorant villagers, but by well-educated bureaucrats, officers, and leaders. And here's the part that stings. You and I are not immune. In fact, the smarter we think we are, the more likely we are to fall into the trap. Psychologists call it the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less someone knows, the more confident they become in their knowledge. But there's a cruel twist. Those at the other extreme, the smart ones, can fall victim too, because intelligence breeds arrogance. We think, I'm too smart to be fooled. I've read the right books, I know the right arguments, I see the world more clearly than others. And the moment you believe that, you've already stopped thinking. You've turned intelligence into a shield to protect your ego instead of a tool to seek truth. It's like standing in front of a mirror that flatters you but hides the cracks. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote that the foolish often end up in power not because they are wise, but because they know how to manipulate the illusions of wisdom. A cunning politician doesn't need to be intelligent. They need to appear decisive, confident, certain. And we, the people, are drawn to that certainty like moths to flame. Think about it. Who would you rather follow? The hesitant thinker, full of doubt, or the loud, unwavering leader who promises easy answers? That's how fools rise, not because they are smarter, but because they weaponize confidence in a world that rewards simplicity over complexity. And if you think you're above being fooled, you've already fallen into the trap. Let's go deeper. Why do people worship corrupt leaders? Why do civilizations repeatedly fall into idiocracy? Nietzsche would say it's because humans crave comfort more than truth. Harsh realities are unbearable, so we choose leaders, systems, even ideologies that soothe us with illusions. We'd rather follow a fool who tells us life is simple than a wise man who admits it's unbearably complex. And the irony: the fool often believes his own illusions. He isn't lying to us, he's lying to himself, which makes him all the more convincing. But here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. What if you are that fool? What if your intelligence, your education, your books, your opinions are the very things blinding you? Philosopher Karl Popper warned that unlimited tolerance leads to the death of tolerance. Likewise, unlimited faith in your own intelligence leads to blindness. Because the smarter you are, the easier it becomes to rationalize anything, to twist logic into self-defense, to build a fortress of words around your fragile ego. You don't just lie to others. You lie to yourself, and you believe it. Think of history's collapses. The Roman Empire didn't fall because everyone suddenly became stupid. It fell because its smartest leaders convinced themselves they were invincible, immune to decay. Think of the financial crashes of modern times. These weren't caused by uneducated gamblers. They were caused by Wall Street geniuses, armed with complex algorithms and blind confidence. Intelligence amplified stupidity. Knowledge became arrogance, and arrogance destroyed them. So what's the way out? Here's the paradox. The wisest people are not those who believe they are wise. They are those who constantly suspect their own stupidity. Socrates, often called the wisest man in Athens, claimed, "I know that I know nothing." At first, that sounds absurd, but it's not an admission of ignorance. It's a declaration of humility. Socrates understood that true wisdom begins with doubt, that the moment you feel certain, you've stopped searching for truth. Wisdom, then, is not the accumulation of answers, but the willingness to live inside questions. So let me ask you again. When was the last time you admitted you were wrong? Not in small things, but in the deep foundations of how you see the world. When was the last time you paused, not to defend your beliefs, but to question them? If your answer is, "I can't remember," then be careful. You may be drifting toward the most dangerous form of stupidity, the arrogance of the intelligent. Because civilizations don't collapse when the uneducated rise. They collapse when the intelligent become blind, when the wise become arrogant, when the people who should know better convince themselves they can't possibly be wrong. The uncomfortable truth is this: you are not as wise as you think. Neither am I. But maybe that's the beginning of hope. Because if we can hold on to the suspicion that we are fools, we keep alive the possibility of learning, of humility, of growth. And if we forget this, if we become too confident in our own brilliance, then history tells us exactly where that road leads. Into the arms of arrogance, into the worship of fools, into the collapse of everything we thought was unshakable. So the next time you feel certain, the next time you're convinced you're right, pause. Ask yourself, what if I'm the fool? Because perhaps the only true wisdom is not in believing you are smart, but in remembering always that you might be wrong.